Real estate agents, are you struggling with the day-to-day grind, dialing for dollars, putting in hours of floor time with little to show for it? Are you looking for tips, tricks, and tactics to accelerate your career as an agent that will have you closing more homes, working with more clients, and earning more money than ever before? Hi, my name's Cliff Freeman, and I've spent the past 2 decades of my real estate career running one of the top brokerages in DFW and personally coaching over 1,000 high-performing real estate professionals across North America. I created this podcast to share the strategies and tactics you need to explode your real estate business. I guarantee it.
Yes, I guarantee it. I do guarantee it today, I must say. And we'd like to welcome a very special guest of ours all the way out from, are you in Phoenix right now?
I am.
Stacey Onnen, our President of Brokerage Operations here at EXP Realty. And we are excited on this beautiful sunshiny day, both in Phoenix and in Dallas, Texas, to have you here and to dive into some really important things that our audience needs to know. And Stacey, as I mentioned just a little while ago, we have a great audience of real estate agents, people who want to be in the business. And so this is a great time for them to get into that amazing brain of yours where you've got all of this collective experience and all of the accomplishments that you've had in this industry. And I'm like I said, I'm super stoked here to be able to unpack things for our group. And so why don't we do this? Why don't we start? You are at like the pinnacle, the top of where people can go in this business. There's not much further for you to go in terms of up. I mean, president of the fastest growing real estate brokerage in the history of real estate here, right? Over 28,000 agents. You've got at least, how many brokers do we have now on your?
So we have probably about 125 brokers across the country.
Okay, so that's in all states, and then
that's
Canada?
In all states. That's not actually counting Canada, not Australia, UK. So that's just our US folks. And when you add them, total in brokerage operations, we have about 300 staff members. So we've got the support, we've got the payment processors, we've got the onboarding group. They're all there and they work in unison just to make sure that we just flow, that it just works for you guys.
Right. So, that must mean we have to have a lot of offices to house these people all over the
you
country.
You would think, wouldn't you?
Well, gosh.
And yet, if you think about that, Cliff, like the fact that we don't have to have the offices to do this, right? So how much more can we do with less? I look at, if we were trying to do this in an office, just to try to have each office function the same, have everyone do the tasks, have enough staff in each office to make sure that we can handle those agents. Instead, everyone sits at home, they're on their computers, they're plugged into the world. We're open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. How many offices can you go to 12 hours a day and get a payment processor or an accounting person?
Wow. I'm sorry, but you just struck a chord, because I remember in a market center where I was a productivity coach, we had 240 or 300 agents in there. And the team leader actually had a sign-up sheet for 15-minute intervals where if you had a question, then you had to get on the sign-up sheet. And if it was full, then you had to look for the next day.
See, and that's tough, and you know what else we just rolled out, Cliff? I'm not sure you were even aware of this. We just rolled out across the country 4 hours every Saturday of payment processing help center and concierge in the world. Because we know that agents, you're out at nights, you're out during the business hours. We wanted to make sure they had some time when they're home that they can connect.
That is awesome. I always tell my agents, look, folks, we work retail hours, and that includes weekends. And so it's so great to hear that there's support available on the weekends. That's when the phone is quieter, the title companies aren't open, the lenders aren't working. So you can actually go in and take care of the maintenance on your business that you need to at that time.
It's a good time to catch up on files, clean up on all that. They're there for that, and again, your brokers, we know they're always available. And that's why we tried to make sure that you've got a large group of them as well.
That's awesome. Well, I'm dying to go back. Let's rewind the tapes a little bit here. I want to take you back let's go back as far as you can. And I want to know about that zero moment of truth, Stacey, when the light went on and you just said, I'm made for real estate? When did that moment happen?
You know, you're going to get a funny answer. I was doing accounting for a construction company. And I cannot honestly tell you what took me to my first real estate class. To this day, I have tried racking my brain trying to remember, like, what was going through my head? What made me think? The only thing I did know is I knew that while I loved the organizational side of accounting, I needed people. I desperately needed people. And so I guess for some reason, I felt like it would be the best of both worlds. So I did it. And like a lot of agents do, I did both jobs to start. I held down my accounting job and worked real estate nights and weekends. You know, I had a young
Wow.
family. You do what you have to do. And it was great. It was in 1998 in a little town called Chino Valley, Arizona, which is just north of Prescott, Arizona. And I always laugh and I say I got my start in real estate selling out of a double wide mobile home in a small town of about 30,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's got to be different. Did you get into, like, I mean, I would imagine that, did you
I
ever
sold
have
some
issues?
unique stuff.
Homes with wheels, right? And nothing
Oh,
wrong with
homes
those.
with wheels still under them.
Mhm.
One of my good friends, Holly, we had cars, animals, I've sold dirt, sold some ranches, done some subdivision development. That was one of the fun things about doing it in a town like that. You got to do everything from the dirt to the entitlements to the
Oh,
subdivision to the resales to the commercial to residential. And there were months you'd have 9 deals in escrow and they totaled a whopping 300,000 between all 9 deals, So
oh my
it was a
gosh.
different world at the time, but I really do look back though and think that I can think to that core group of people that helped me and realize that that support system, those people that were willing to let me shadow them on a listing appointment, shadow them on buyer's appointments, that was how I went out and meshed all of that info from 6 different people's style.
Mhm.
And then I created my own.
Okay. So let's dive a little deeper in that. You have a heart of education, a heart of service. I mean, you're such a great servant leader. Um, Now in the seat that you're in, how do you approach and how do you look at agents who are just entering the business, especially when it comes to what we're doing at EXP?
It's funny, and your timing on the question is perfect because just last night I got a call from a lady who I had mentored in real estate about 3 or 4 years ago at my previous brokerage, and she was brand new at the time. And she said, I'm calling you for advice today because you're the person I always call for that advice." And so it did remind me, and that's she talked to me about that is my biggest thing that I wish everyone would do, and that's why I like the podcasts you guys are doing, and there's been so many of you right now, is if you're newer in the industry right now, it can be a different time to jump in. And yet look at how many amazing agents and amazing brokerages were built in the last downturn. If you start, I think it was Patricia Young that told me she started during the last downturn, and she said it was the best gift she was ever given because she didn't come in when it was easy. She came in when she needed to really learn it. And I think there's a couple really awesome things people can do right now is watch and take every single class you can possibly take. Knowledge is power. I will never forget my first client was a CPA. And I learned my contract. I wrote 10 practice contracts. Like, to me, that is one of the most important things you can do. Because I always knew that no matter how much knowledge I had, I was going to still be nervous. I was going to be nervous that I got lost. I was going to be nervous I couldn't get the lockbox to work. And I always realized I couldn't take away the nervousness of those small things. But by me understanding that contract and knowing I could answer those questions that came along in that aspect, it just puts a different level of ease. And people are okay with you getting lost in a neighborhood, but they're not as comfortable when you don't know the answers on the contract. And so I really think right now is that perfect time. We've got like over 100 classes a week live in the world and recorded and places they can go. And there's all these wonderful people like you doing podcasts to bring them the info. If they just dive into that right now, and again, go back to the word database, which everybody laughs at, but it really is the key to the kingdom. And I think if they just do that, they will not skip a beat right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, database. If you look at assets in a real estate business, there's really only one, and that's your
Right.
database. If you were going to sell your business, leases are not assets, they're liabilities, right? So the
Absolutely.
only thing that's going to generate money for you going forward, unless you spend additional money, is your database.
And I
Well,
know realtors who've done that in retirement. They sell their database and get referral fees out of it. It's perfect.
yeah, well, tell me about that. How can retirement for realtors at EXP be a little bit different?
It's so that was where, and again, you guys are always, I always laugh because Dave is definitely our best rev share explain person, him and Jason for me. But with having that rev share possibility and it being a true revenue share, we're working right now to create the referral brokerage license so that people will be able to hang their licenses easier, and as long as they're still the licensed agent, there's someone for there, they can continue to receive that revenue share from their lines as they decide to go ahead and just start slowing down out of this business. And that was one of the things that was so different, and then you look at our agents can invest in stock with each closing that they have. And myself included, especially in the beginning of my career, we are not always the best at investing back into ourselves. You're so busy trying to keep everything going, right? When we look back and think, what if we adjust? What if, right? But between the stock, which I think is huge, that is such a long-term play. That is not one that you play for a little while. Between the well, and even truthfully, another way to save money and we've got the new insurance plans now. And so by an
Yeah.
agent being able to put their family on some health care, how much are they saving a year out of pocket? So I just think there's so many different ways that they can take advantage of that. But between rev share and stock, there'll just be a huge moment there where they're going to be able to propel themselves forward into that retirement and not skip a beat.
No, yeah, absolutely. I've helped several small indies and large teams migrate over here because they didn't have an exit strategy. There was no way.
Right.
I mean, so they pay you 2.5 times trailing earnings or something. I mean, you know how fast that goes away,
Oh,
and
I
then
know.
maybe you have an earnout attached to it or something. If you're going to build a legacy, why not build a legacy where it can continue to grow and make you money,
It's
right?
so true.
So I mean, in particular, and I don't know, when I'll never forget and always be thankful to Brent Gove and Sheila and Rob and Gene all the way up the line. But,
Right.
I was 58 when I joined EXP, and I was afraid I was going to outlive my money.
Awesome.
And,
Yeah.
that is,
It's a
that's
true concern.
it's a very big concern. And in a, short 3.5 years, that's not a concern for me any longer. And the model is what really makes sense. So let's talk a little bit about the state of the real estate industry right now. I
Yeah.
know you and I both know we've talked to a lot of agents who are at a point of they just don't know what to do. Now, you had some
Right.
great thoughts about, really hitting the education hard
Right.
and so forth. What about one thing that you and I talked about briefly before the call was, and you get to see the numbers, you know what sales are and so forth. And you had mentioned that sales, even though many of our agents are locked down,
Right.
are doing incredibly well right now. Tell me about that.
They are. So it's been very fascinating, I guess I could say, to watch because as everything started to shut down in March, we didn't know what was going to happen. We weren't quite sure which direction was this going to go. And the one thing I think I remember telling you right before the call is how impressed I was at how resilient our agents have been. A lot of us went through it once before and we kind of stepped back and watched and weren't quite sure what to do. This time, there wasn't even a skip a beat. We have switched so much to the virtual ways to sell homes, the 360 tours. Right now, I think the one stat that has amazed me the most is the listing stat. So we took almost as many listings in the month of March as we did in the month of January and February. We did not go down. And I would have
Wow.
anticipated that some of the sales might have stayed, but that the listings. And so agents have openly said, my listing pictures right now, they're not perfect because they're not professional. My seller did them. My seller did their home tour through an iPhone. But they have found ways to still get those properties on the market. And then when I track sales, our April closings are right on track for where they should be. And we're not seeing the number of cancellations that we thought might come through. Do we expect to have some slowdown in May and June? Absolutely. But as you and I both know, we still can't look at our May numbers right now and judge them because we're still putting escrows in right now that are going to close in May. So we're not far off track there either. And I think I've just been really impressed that the agents that just continued to call their clients, work through it, stay in touch with their state broker teams and their state associations to make sure, what can I do? How can I still keep moving? And I think the other advantage a lot of our agents had, and I haven't seen other brokerages numbers, I've just seen ours, but I felt like an advantage our agents had is, well, they needed to pivot and just do a slight one to figure out, okay, how do I list a home virtually now? I thought I knew how to sell one virtually, but now let's try to list one virtually. But they didn't have to pivot on any other virtual moment. They still reach their broker in the same way. Our office is open. You can still come into the world. The full staff is still there from 8 to 8. And so I think there was a slight advantage that at least they had one area of their business where we were just business as usual. And so I think that helps to pull some of the shock factor down of that difference in, well, now we're locked in our house, but it doesn't really affect us. And so I've been super impressed just to see that we're on track for April. We're still looking pretty good for May and June, and those numbers are yet to be seen. But the most impressive is you guys figured out how to list just as many houses as you did before.
It's amazing. As I said, there has not really been, there was a brief time when people were looking around just trying to figure out which way the wind was blowing. But as soon as they figured out the wind, they set their sails and boy, they were headed off.
And we do track them daily. So like you said, we actually can see those couple days. Yeah. And there was like 2 or 3 different points during the month where different orders came out in different parts of the country. But the other neat thing is watching how quickly real estate is becoming an essential service and how quickly states are working to make sure that that can still flow through.
That is interesting because you see the picture really you see all 50 states.
Right.
And in Texas, you know, we've been an essential service for, you know, well, we were one of the first states to hop on board that and realize that, you know, there are circumstances in life that people can't put off. And that may include buying or selling a house. You know, that just,
absolutely,
you cannot put some things off like that. What are you seeing in general? If you looked into your crystal ball, and I don't want to hold a gun to your head here or anything, but I mean, when do you see things getting back into some semblance of normalcy?
I'm gonna dust off my magic 8 ball from when we were kids and shake it up really good. You know, I think it's going to be interesting to see how and when things lighten up in May. And we were talking about this the other day, and again, we're all guessing to an extent here because we're not quite sure. We haven't been through this exact scenario before, but if one of my theories is, if you remember back the last time, we slowed gradually, right? Like we saw it coming. We saw it coming. And so the need and everybody kind of slowed. This time, we literally just put the irrigation valve closed. We were going, and then all of a sudden we closed the valve. And so here's all of this water behind it, building pressure, all of these people that were out shopping for houses and everything's still going. And so I think it's going to be very interesting to see that going through May and June, when everything really starts to open back up again, and we pull that back out of the irrigation valve, I'm not quite sure that we're going to see the super gradual that we saw last time. I feel like there is going to be a bit of pent up demand. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how all of that plays out. You know, and again, I mean, you know, when I listen to, we've got some really smart financial planners and I love listening to them. Sometimes it's definitely pretty high level, but what I enjoy is, you know, even they have said that they're not certain, but they do anticipate it to make a pretty good comeback. And again, the one thing we just have to always watch is how long does it go on? And as long as it doesn't last too long, it feels as though at this moment, we're going to have a pretty good quick recovery.
So regarding a quick recovery, there are going to be some brokerages that, let's just be truthful here, that are not going to skip a beat. And I'm talking about us. And there are going to be others that have got to go back in, turn the lights back on, open the doors, move their stuff back in. And, you know, for an agent who is in limbo right now, and especially for those who didn't get the opportunity to enjoy 2008, 9, and 10. Um, Talk to those agents about why they need to be intentionally strategic where they hang their license and why EXP might just be the best place ever to do that now.
Well, when I'm sure we've all had some of the objections at first to EXP being a virtual brokerage, right? How can you do real estate if your broker's in the world? I can't see them. And it was amazing once we joined and how quickly we realized I can actually see them better because I don't have to get dressed and drive across town, right? My broker is there. And so when I look at I'm like take my husband for instance, and most people's spouses right now, they don't normally work from home. But right now, their entire business has shifted and they're all working from home. And watching that adjustment period, I remember what it was like. The difference is they don't quite have the awesome tools we have. Like we were truly set up to be virtual. We're not trying to quickly figure it out. And so I think as the general population realizes this can work, people do this, and it's actually better, more efficient, and easier. I think that even in the public, not just the realtors, that as soon as this is done, that fear of, well, can I get the same service and can I get the same comfort level working virtually? Absolutely. Look at how many houses you sold during a time when you could not physically go touch people. And so I do think that this is the time to look at, as Glenn said the other day, everything is going to be different. Everything to a level, some things will not go back to the same. People will accept virtual more. They will accept all of this more. Look at the people going and renting Virbela cloud campuses right now. They cannot keep up with the demand. And so by having yourself positioned with one of those brokerages that was able to not just survive through this, but possibly thrive through this and build and grow, I think at the end of the day, we just become a more comfortable model for the long term.
Well, that's, of course, I believe that from day one. And, this company, we have some colleagues who do a Saturday show called We Were Built for This.
Yeah.
And literally when Glenn was, chewing on this and thinking about, well, how can I build something that will sustain through this and not only sustain, but, function well and, be
Yep.
able to, to survive the ups and downs in the industry. It's almost like, he saw this coming, this opportunity,
Right.
coming here. And as bad as it is, and believe me, my heart goes out to everybody who's lost loved ones and who's, suffered through this. It's horrible. But we've also got to remember the pain and suffering from those who are just a victim of the economy right now, and that shutting down, and that includes a lot of real estate agents.
It really does.
When your office is locked and you can't find your broker, you have problems, especially if you're a newer agent, and you don't have that ability to be able to just hop on your computer, log on, and go jump in the cloud and talk to your broker or payment processing or accounting or onboarding or you name all the departments in there.
Right.
And people, when we talk about the world, there are people out there who have no idea what we're talking about. And so it's kind of hard to explain, but if you can imagine living in a world where everything was virtual, the office buildings. The only thing I noticed that we don't have in EXP world are bathrooms. And I've always wondered how people can stay in those offices all day long without a bathroom in the building. I meant to ask Glenn about that.
One of the coolest things, and I think because you're right, the world is hard to explain, right? If you haven't experienced it. And so there's two nuances that start to happen in the world that for me kind of just explain best how real it becomes. Just this morning, I was talking to Jim Newth, our Senior Vice President of Operations, and we were in the world and we were both had our avatars sitting around a table. Well, where we were positioned, I couldn't see him. And he laughed because once again, I stopped talking, turned my avatar's head because I needed to see his avatar. There is just that you feel incredibly rude if you're not looking at that person because this is a representation of them and they are really behind that avatar. And then the other social nuance that I love the most that just says how much real life bleeds into the world. I will go into a meeting and if all the chairs are taken, one of the gentlemen will actually get their avatar out of the chair and tell me to sit down. And I think it's number one, the most adorable, sweet thing. but it also just shows that we are so used to working in this avatar world that all of our real life mannerisms bleed over into it.
So there is culture, right? I
There
mean,
is
obviously,
absolute culture in there.
yeah, because that's one of the big things people go, well, how can you have a culture if, if there's, if you're in, playing Donkey Kong, right? Or something like
Absolutely.
that. That's the furthest thing from what this is,
Well, and we
by the
even have
way.
a fun culture. We nicknamed Dave Master of Shenanigans because, everyone in there, you're changing names over the offices, changing their title over their head, boxing them in with sticky notes in a room, just we literally, it does become this, you do the same things as you would in a brick and mortar to lighten the day and keep it fun.
Right, absolutely. I remember Jason this weekend was talking on the show that I mentioned earlier about the soccer tournament that
Yes.
was held, and the happy hour on the beach. Everybody was sitting
Yes.
out there watching fireworks, virtual
Yeah.
fireworks on the virtual beach, drinking their real Cabernet. And it's just
Yeah.
amazing that the camaraderie. But that's really the world is the glue that allows for the collaboration that we all have.
It
And
does.
you've worked in different brokerages in the
Oh,
past,
yeah.
and so have I. And my experience here is like nothing else that I've ever seen where you have top level producers that are not only willing to share, but they're genuinely interested in
Yeah.
other people's success. I mean,
Absolutely.
how's that impacted the things that brokers look for? How does that
Yeah.
benefit your side of the business to have that type of collaboration?
It's interesting. So one of the things that I have been really impressed with and truthfully shocked with was when I first came. I had been with Keller before, so I understood the profit share model, right? And I knew rev share was different. The one difference that I found so fascinating at first was as a broker side, if you're my broker and I'm struggling, whether it be with paperwork, something simple, which we all struggle with, even your brokers, or if I'm struggling to get my business going, or the broker notices that, hey, this person's sales are dropping off. It is so refreshing to be able to call someone in their revenue share group who truly cares about that person's success and be able to have a conversation of how can we help them together. And the response on the other hand is never, no, I'm not helping them. It's always, how can I help? How can I work this out with them? They really do take an active role. And I think that when I look at, even just if you look at our icon agents and the amount of classes these people teach in the world, these are our highest producing agents. And yet one of their requirements to become an icon is to give their time back and teach for other agents. And it's funny, they don't just teach the minimum, they love it. They're in there teaching as much as they can. And so the other cool thing too is you're not just learning from people in your market. You're learning from people 2,000 miles away across the country, how they sell real estate. And it is always slightly tweaked different. And so you can bring back, quote, new techniques to your area that you learned from someone 1,000 miles away. And I really do believe because everyone is vested in each other's success, not just in rev share, but we have shares in stock, and it's just the level of connectivity, the level of people reaching out, even on the staff level. I watched over Christmas and a gift exchange between the staff. They did a one of the blind gift exchanges. They all figured out a way to put names in a hat and sent ornaments to each other across the country. I mean, it is crazy how from agents to staff to everyone in between, they've figured out how to become a family and realize that if you do better, I do better.
Right. It's incredible. We have some wonderful groups within our organization. Many of us prior to coming to EXP were, in some great groups on
Yeah.
Facebook and so forth, and coaching groups and so forth. And, what's really just, it blows me away is the best of those people that I've met in the other various groups now are starting to all aggregate here into EXP,
Right.
where we get more value in Workplace, which is our intranet. It's actually, what's great about Workplace? Just if you haven't, for those of you in the audience, I want to tell you about Workplace. Close your eyes and imagine Facebook with no advertising and no weird, freaky people. Okay. Wouldn't it be awesome? Well, that's really what in essence what Workplace is. It's our intranet. It allows us to collaborate, share files, group IM. We can video chat each other. We can do everything that you can in Facebook without all the noise and the other bad stuff that's part
And
of that social
we
media
have all
platform.
those interest groups in it, which I love. So by the way, if you're afraid if you left Facebook and went to Workplace, you'd miss your cat and dog videos, we have Pets of EXP. There is a group in there and they do share their favorite pictures. But I mean, you have every level of group in there. You have every specialty interest and you can join these groups and they mastermind together. And you're right. It's because I am not always on social media, but I am always on Workplace.
Right. And that's the great thing, because well, I know you have 28,000 agents that you're responsible for, but at any given time, any one of those agents can chat you on
Yes,
Workplace
absolutely.
and be
And
in
we will answer.
contact with you immediately.
Absolutely.
And that's impossible in a franchise environment where you've got, hundreds of competing interests. Everybody has their own little fiefdom, their own little
Right.
kingdom, and they're
Yeah.
trying to just, eke a little subsistence level existence out of their little kingdom, right? And they don't like to play well with others. They always do when they go to the big conventions, but when
Right.
they get back, they're trying to figure out ways to, hey, how can we beat them and how can we beat them?
Oh,
And
yeah.
when you tear down those walls, and everybody sings like a choir, you've got 28,000 voices out there that sound like one voice, because we all sing
Absolutely.
in unison. That is what is so cool about this.
You know what else
And
is
that's where the
fascinating,
power.
Cliff, that I think a lot of times, we talk about how the agents mastermind, but for a lot of agents out there, the quality of broker support is paramount. It has to be there, right? And so I always tell people one of the things that I didn't even realize I could ever get. So when I brokered at a different company and I had other brokers across the valley that I always knew I could call for support, right? You definitely went back and forth. But at the end of the day, you knew you were going to be across ethics at some point. You knew you'd be across something. What I love about EXP is they have 125 people to lean on. So as an agent, if you actually can find one of those things that your broker's like, that's a new one. They have 124 of their closest friends to reach out to. And the fact that, you're going to find someone who's come across that. And so to me, just even the fact that your broker has that same support system to ensure that they can give you the best advice, the best guidance, the best support, that combined with the agent masterminds just ups it another level.
That's something I didn't even really think about that. But as brokers, I mean, you guys obviously are working much more hand in hand, much closer together now because of the way that we're connected. Even though people are working out of their houses, it's not the physical connection, it's the being able to get a hold of somebody and have a conversation with them.
And knowing they have no other interest but to make sure you and your agent are good, you're out of trouble, and your deal goes well.
We're all joined at the hip. We've got that common thread, between the stock and rev share. And Glenn was brilliant. I mean, he's a sharp guy, and he knew that as far as retention, and being able to provide. I love the fact Jason said again on Saturday. He said Glenn is always about. He never wants to make any decision that's about the company that's in conflict with his agents. He says he never ever wants to be in conflict with his agents. Now there's a leader who knows.
Absolutely.
And I've got a great book here. I don't know if you've read Simon Sinek's book. I don't know if we can even see it here. It's
yes.
Leaders Eat Last.
Absolutely.
And, that must have been written about Glenn Sanford. That's his mantra. And I'm so thankful to be a part of this group. And, there's nothing, I don't know what to say, because it's obviously been a life changer for me. And, the over 4,000 agents that are in my revenue share group, and the other, 22,000, 24,000 that are in the company that we love as much as our own, So it really has proven out to be an incredible model. I mean, to be able to attract, talent like you and our leadership, Dave Kennard, our board of directors, and all of the other, staff that is just, we've got a world-class staff and company And part of the reason that we can do that is because people don't have to relocate to Bellingham, Washington, to get a job with EXP. I mean, they can stay right where they want to be. We've got people working all over the world with EXP. And it's, that's just part of the deal here. So when you talk about the freedoms that we all seek, which is location freedom, time freedom, and financial freedom, there's no better place in the world that I can think of to seek those out than EXP. Well, I hate, this is the worst part of the show for me because we're running out of time, and I know you have an appointment that you have to go to. But it's been such a joy to have you on the show today. Is there, Stacey, is there anything that I did not ask you during the show today that I perhaps should have? Is there anything that nobody knows about you that you'd like to tell us about?
It's funny. I tell everybody all the time, I'm pretty open book. Just ask. Everybody that works with me knows I'm a very black and white person. I think the one thing I'm just going to, and these poor agents, I know they're going to get tired of me saying this, but right now, everybody, every single day, call someone in your database, 5 of them, and just say hi and check on them. It will pay you in the long run more than you can ever imagine.
Make that connection. We're not here to sell anything.
Not here to sell.
We're just here to serve.
Check on them. Do. And realtors care. That's not forced. They genuinely care about their clients. So it's a very easy phone call to make.
Absolutely. Well, that's great advice from a great person.
Thank you for having me.
Stacey, thank you so much for being here. I'll look forward, I guess, what are we doing? Are we going to have shareholders in the world this weekend?
We are. There is a meeting. It's either today or tomorrow. Gretchen knows my calendar better than I do, but we're going to have the meeting. They're absolutely going to have it. They're going to make sure we have the masterminds, the X camp. They're getting it all in there for you. So I'm really excited for it.
Okay. So isn't that wild?
Yeah.
This pandemic shows up and most companies have had to cancel their shareholders meetings and we're just taking ours and we're just moving it to
pull it into the world.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Pull it into what we know.
That is fantastic. Well, it's great to see you, Stacey.
Good to see you.
Thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Have a great week. And to the audience out there, I hope you really enjoyed today's show. Stacey, if anybody wanted to reach out to you, is there an email address that you could share with us?
So it's just my name, Stacey.Onnen @gmail.com. So just STACEYONNEN @gmail.com.
Okay, you're very generous with your time, and I know you have a heart of service and you just want to help people. So thank you.
Let me know anything. All right, you take care. We'll talk soon.
All right, good to see you. Take care. Everybody out there, get out there, try to go out and enjoy this beautiful weather. Just because we're locked in doesn't mean you got to be locked out. All right, have a good week.